How do's, ladies and gents? Sam here, and it is Monday, which is update day. There's not a huge amount going on, to be totally fair. First and foremost, your boss pets, if you happen to have one, lucky you. But you can now use them as overrides for your summoning familiars, so you no longer have to look at the traditional yak or whatever else. You can now walk around with your boss pet. Happy days. That's pretty much it for that one. They've improved God Wars Dungeon 2 a little bit. Kill time has now been added for each boss. There's a way to renew your instance while still inside via your kill count interface. Drop tables for the mobs have also been added. They've improved the click zone of said bosses. On your faction insignia, you can now toggle the option to prevent dealing damage to matching faction NPCs. You can now check via your kill count interface which bounty you've currently been assigned. You can now toggle on faction insignias the option to automatically collect ingression fragments for you. The Aftershock invention perk will now proc more frequently. And a tooltip for your current reputation points has also been added to your kill count interface. They've also made a smaller, slimmer version of it as well, in case you don't like the chunky one. Also, Bloom's been added for the Twin Furies weapon gems. So, there we go. That's pretty much all the improvements of God Wars 2. And that is the update for today. It's kind of small, isn't it? Boss pet override and some fixes to God Wars 2, essentially. Well, they do have some streams, but it's a bit of meh. Q&A for the summer 2016 was coming out. A K drops from your rare drop table, so you can see what happens there. Showcasing the boss pet override and PVM with Model. So all throughout the week. So yeah, just subscribe to RuneScape and it'll tell you on your phone. It's much easier. Either way, on geographical stuff and your patch notes for today. Ashdale is no longer visible on NXT via your Void Knight Outpost or the South Shore of Felder Hills. They fixed an issue with the golden hammer appearing on both your back whilst you're equipping it and smithing. They've made some minor graphical changes to the login screen, such as sorting out text and nonsense. A sheathed rune shield heraldic 2 no longer stretches. Updated some incorrect tiles on the path outside a Legends Guild in NXT. They resolved a stretching issue when praying at the altar of Zaros in the KBD outfit. They fixed an issue with custom stance animations caused by weapons displaying where they shouldn't. Malignus Mortify and his fellow band of elemental wizards have paid a quick visit to the Makeover Mage for a facelift. So, yeah, that's a thing. The symbol displayed on the Ascended Legionist energy bomb is now consistent with the back-mounted ring it was fired from. The golden outline no longer remains when slowly moving the cursor away from the ribbon in a legacy interface mode. Gadaran mages no longer continue to perform the asphyxiate animation after they're dead. Yeah, probably shouldn't. On to your skills and nonsense then. Talking to Alice in the Treasure Hunt interface no longer resets the promotion timer. Silverhawk boots no longer count as combat XP for challenge gems. They've removed some lines of voiceover referring to green clothes from the Death Lotus assassins during the minigame A Simple Favour. Corrupt Vesta now states the correct stats needed in the skill guide. Equipment lent woodcutting hatches no longer appear sheathed as well as when you use them when woodcutting. Yeah. Daily limit on the amount of Rune Sphere players can participate in has now been removed, however the Rune Dust cap is still in effect. Defender Imps will now correctly free Divine Imblins. Ultra Growth Pots now work on the tree patch at Herbal Habitat, fix an issue where sometimes the warning confirmation messages were showing the incorrect perks in the gizmo when attempting to resolve it. And various combat abilities are now correctly listed as free to play. And players will no longer disconnect if they click cancel on the skill choice menu when using a prismatic star from the failure shop. On to your quests and achievements. They fixed the condition in which was not possible to close the minigame interface after logging in if already tracking one of Meg's cases. An error in the amount of listed total tasks complete with progress for Lumbridge and Drain has now been resolved. They fixed an issue with Farid could spawn more than once during the DT quest. They fixed grammar error in the Rockin' Out quest. And the left click option on the pitch can be used in the quest The Fire Maker's Curse, and minigame will now attempt to both light a fire underneath the player if it is not possible to light a fire in front of said player. Yeah, well you could have just right clicked and lit fire and it would do it anything, whatever. On to miscellaneous. Boss pets objects are no longer destroyed on death, instead they can be reclaimed from death with a reclaim cost of 8k coins. The kill count multiplier is now cleared when leaving the heart. Maximum player size in the heart instances is now remembered correctly when rejoining or creating a new instance. They've updated the object and challenge names for the costume boxes to the fancy dress boxes. Using a channeled melee ability on a target out of the equipped weapons range now causes the character to run towards the target, then perform said ability. Ability and spec attack queuing in Legacy Interface mode now behaves properly. It is no longer possible to cast Surgeon Onslaught without a spell selected, and the Greater Runic Staff will no longer take charges when casting abilities. Removing ammunition whilst in a PvP situation will no longer allow another player to instantly attack the player. The Dragon Breath and Chain abilities will now correctly grant 8% adrenaline per cast. It is no longer possible to change targets whilst casting Shadow Tendrils ability, and Onslaught is now correctly interrupted by bandages within Soul Wars. They've also improved the following 7 spells and prayers. Fortitude now grants 15% defense and 3% damage reduction, 10 LP and 10 LP per constitution level, and plus 10% accuracy once using defensive abilities. Intercept's duration has been increased from 5 seconds to 10 seconds, and Prisms. Recasting Prism spells will restore half of the equivalent Prism duration within range. Also, single target ancient spells will now activate only on the main target if used with a AoE ability. Multi-target ancient spells will now only consume runes for one cast if activated whilst you use AoE abilities. They've also fixed a spell mistake on the Dragon Trinket abilities interface, and Shield Dome now starts a 50% reduction within PvP situations. Shield Dome will no longer cause players to attack themselves. Always a nice thing. Players can now hover over the Rune Metrics skill to see more info about this skill, such as their current XP and remaining XP till goal. Players benefiting from the Rune Metrics Pro will now correctly see living rock creatures on their kills and drop trackers within the website. Fixed a spell mistake on one of the achievements for the Raid Feats interface. Also, the Ring of Invisibility's drop option has now been renamed to Destroy. The bank search interface will no longer appear when opening the bank after attempting to join a friend's chat. The object, the Mask of Dagrith Nirn, is now correctly catalysed. Fair enough, that was really important. Switching from a members world to free-to-play world will now change players to the standard prayer book when switching back to members worlds. The previous settings will be restored. Players no longer disconnect when attempting to use an item from the action bar on an object on the ground. Nice little glitch. Players no longer disconnect when dragging items from the Beast of Burden inventory to the action bar via the bank interface. And an outdated warning message has been removed when entering the wilderness via the ice block. Additionally, they've added some new logic to equipment tooltips so that they no longer sometimes cut off longer text strings. And last but not least, we have some ninja updates. Updated several combat abilities, tooltips to better reflect the effects of the abilities. Sacrifice will also no longer guarantee 100% weapon damage in PvP situations. Smoke tendrils no longer require the target to stay still, and they fixed an issue with Needle Strike that was causing the 5% buff for more than one attack. Asphyxiate stun and bind durations now actually match. The invention Pogo Stick is now a level 1 weapon. They've moved the Clan Cut Plague to the south wall of Edgeville Bank to alleviate misclicks when banking from the furnace. The Grand Exchange buy limits for urns has now been increased. They've also added the ability for the Jad pet to run. Hiding Familiars options now also hides options for Toy Royal Battleships and Champion Banner Carriers. The information box when augmented an item will now display on character instead of over the inventory. Dominion markers and marker plants can no longer be set up in bank healing areas nor at the Combat Academy. Superior Void Knight gloves can now be added to a player-owned house armor case in a separate slot. The Superior set still requires the gloves to be stored though. Weaving Divide Energy will now open the Make X interface to a craftable item instead of defaulting to the first entry within the list. Creatures will no longer drop orts if the player has reached the maximum amount they can actually store. And free players can now smith their own throwing knives and offhand throwing knives. They've also made changes to the shipyard view in player-owned ports to improve frame rates. And finally, NXT improvements. Prevent some cases where world hopping or connecting to a clan citadel would cause a player to drop to login screen. They fixed occasions where players or NPCs facing another player or NPC weren't actually facing them properly. Also, the attack on the Firewatch has been moved within the list. Whatever the hell that means. The attack op on Firewatch. I don't know. An issue causing players to appear on the wrong map square has now been fixed. The clan QFC now displays correctly. They've also fixed an issue where the mini-menu was crashing. They've also fixed an issue where inventory slots were disappearing. Translation issues in the launcher config window title now have been remedied. An issue where the Dragon Slayer magic door was not transitioning properly has now been fixed. They've also fixed the issue where players were unable to start the quest to Firemaker's Curse, and they fixed the position of mini-menu entries to be the same as they were within the Java client, and they fixed the issue of affecting the detection of the mouse within menu entries. The Wilderness Agility course stepping stone animation's also been sorted out. And that is pretty much it, bitches. There we go, that's your update of the day then. Boss pets can now override summoning familiars, and they've made a small improvement to God Wars Dungeon 2 and a fuck ton of patch notes. Job done then. Till next time, catch you later.